joining me. I feel like this has been a long time coming.
Oh my goodness, it's been 2 years in the making, and I'm so excited.
Yes, it has been, but as we say, right, better late than never. And I'm really excited to just share your insights. I started following you several years ago. You were always a breath of fresh air to me, just as someone who definitely has a tendency to keep going, going, going. It's always a breath of fresh air to find someone who gets it from that perspective, but also in regard to like taking a couple steps back. I know that you recently went back to performing. I did the same thing about a year ago, so I feel like we've had a couple parallels, and I just wanted us to connect. So why don't you introduce yourself to us and just update us on what you're working on currently?
Okay, well, my name is Goldie, and I am the creator of the Lazy Ballerina Club. And the Lazy Ballerina Club was definitely a COVID passion project. I had just left my professional ballet company. I broke my contract mid-season to prioritize my mental wellness inside of ballet. And then the world shut down, and I was like, oh my God, what on earth is about to happen? But honestly, it was like a blessing in disguise because I was able to share my story, connect with so many other dancers, and kind of promote this, message of life outside of ballet is only going to help life inside of ballet. And since then, I've been sharing. I've been retired, recently out of retirement, back into retirement, question mark, I don't know. So that's like the SparkNotes version.
Yeah, I definitely can relate to that, particularly the what's my status? You know what I mean? It's like I've delved back into performance in the last year, and I want to continue to do that. But at the same time, I've got 2 kids at home now. I've got a full-time business, and it's a balance, right? It's an ongoing journey, and I think as dancers, we get very hung up on the labels, yes. Right? We get very hung up on, well, what side do we land on? And I think one thing that you promote and that I really want to discuss with you is just this idea of there are no rules, right? Why does it have to be so dichotomous? So I'm curious to hear from you about your experience with delving back into performance, and how you are working to balance that in your recent past, but also potentially in the future too.
Yes, so I have gotten so many questions about my Nutcracker. How did it happen? Like, what on earth? Why I decided to do it. And when I left my company, the conversation was, if you break your contract, that's it. You can't dance anywhere. You'll essentially be shunned from the ballet world, which I always felt was like very dramatic and unnecessary. And I remember when I did leave, making the decision, it might not be in a company, I might not be dancing for a company, but I want to find a way that I can have ballet in my life in the way that it makes me feel the best. And that might not be in the ordinary way that we all think of. We're training for this one thing to get into a ballet company, to do these productions. And if you don't do that, then the conversation is kind of like, well, you didn't make it, or you're not a professional, or whatever. And I think that is silly. So doing the Nutcracker was kind of this like fun little game. I viewed it as a game of like, why not? I saw the audition. I kind of viewed it as like a free class, and I got it. And it was actually a really good exercise for me to kind of put into practice everything that I've learned from therapy and being outside of the ballet world, and see if I'm like able to, I don't know, take the medicine that I preach and like put it into real life. And it was a lot of fun. It was really fun.
Yeah, I love hearing that, and I cannot tell you how parallel it feels for me. It was actually my mom who was the one that was, when I questioned about doing Nutcracker, because that was also, or that is the performance that I usually go back to now every year. Yep. And when I questioned it, I was like, I can't do this. At the time, my son was 7, my daughter was 3, and I've got a full-time business. I'm like, what am I, crazy? I can't keep up the demand to be able to get on stage and feel like I would be sufficient or good enough, right, for my performance. That was a big thing for me. Luckily, the performance that I do, they're so flexible, they're so understanding. I do it with some other fellow amazing moms, and we're all kind of like on the same page, which is really nice.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the challenge. The challenge was more on me and my mindset of being like, well, when will you be ready, right? When will you feel sufficient? And all of the work that I've done here, just being a dietitian for over like 15 years now, right, for dancers, healing my own relationship with both food but also with dance, right, and realizing that, like, what does it really mean to be performance ready, right? How we define that individually. And I really had to come to terms with my own definition of that and building that confidence to do it again. And it sounds like you had a very similar experience, right? And it was so rewarding, I assume.
Yes, it was also a very different situation. And throughout the Nutcracker process, I was documenting it, and it was a conversation that I was having, like, I wasn't a part of a company. And when you are a part of a company, Nutcracker is kind of the moment where, the director is looking at you and deciding, are you going to get promoted? Are you going to get fired or let go? And there's so much added pressure on top of, making it through Nutcracker, healthfully and like injury free. So to be able to perform and not be attached to a company, and although there was a director, it was definitely a different environment. It took all of the pressure away, and it was just like fun. Like, when you're little and you're going to dance class, that was the feeling. And there were some moments where I was like, okay, I'm kind of over it, or I'm exhausted, or, it's still ballet. So there will still be those political conversations. And at the same time, because I feel stronger within myself, it was just way more fun and easy breezy than, I don't know, when you're in a company, it just feels like life or death,
Yeah, but also, I mean, arguably all of the work that you have done, like you said, in regards to your work in therapy and the work that you do and building the Lazy Ballerina Club, right? This has all helped to build a mindset where you are able to access the fun of dance again, right? It's very easy for us to lose that fun and lose that passion when we're so focused on the grind. Typically, in the later end of someone's like pre-professional years and then the early stages of their professional career, like you said, want that pressure to want to work up the ranks and, starting as an apprentice and all of those goals, which are all great goals to have, but can definitely feel incredibly overwhelming and really come down on a dancer, especially if they haven't yet done the work to like heal their relationship with food and heal their relationship with their body. So many of these factors come to play, and it's so beautiful to hear that you were able to access the fun again. Like that, to me, that's everything. That's success right there, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, let me just say, there were still moments. There were still moments of doubt, and there were still moments where I'm like, am I too old to do this? I haven't been in a studio, let alone in a leotard for 5 years. Like, oh my God. And at the same time, like, prioritizing that balance outside of that rehearsal process is what saved me. I had my Nutcracker rehearsal, but then I had to rush to my full-time job. And then I had to go home and have dinner with my boyfriend or go to trivia with my girlfriends, and without the normal parts of my life, all I would be doing at home is, oh my goodness, I wanted to be Snow Queen and I have to be Chinese and it's Nutcracker. Like, why am I even doing this? Not the reason,
Oh my gosh, I cannot tell you how relatable that feels. Just being in my mid 30s and going back to it and just being like, is this actually like a thing? Am I doing this? Am I okay to do this? So again, not to keep bringing this up, but having 2 kids at home, if I get a call from school that my son is sick, I got to leave rehearsal. I got to go. Luckily, again, the environment that I am is very flexible, understanding, and incredible in that realm. But Yes, the balance portion, right? So now to get back to what you had really brought up initially in our chat, the importance of having balance outside of ballet being so crucial for how you are able to thrive in the studio. And I think that for me at least, I was really able to find that when I had left professional life, right? And building my dietetics career and all that stuff. And it sounds like for you, the shift during COVID was a big shift in regards to finding balance. And slowly, like you said, it was a blessing in disguise.
Yes, I think, as ballet dancers and as any like high level athlete, if you want to make it into a career, you have to commit. You have to go all in. And when you have to go all in, there are a lot of sacrifices. You can't be at the weddings, you can't be at the parties or whatever. And when you're in it, you don't even realize how deep in it you are. I remember when I first left, the identity crisis that I was experiencing was top on the list, the hardest thing that I had to get through, because my whole entire life I was able to say, I'm Goldie, I'm a professional ballet dancer, and people, that gets a response. It's like, oh, that's special, that's cool, that's unique. And then when you strip that away, that self-worth feels like it just vanishes. Like, oh, well, now I'm just Goldie? Like, that's lame. I want to get back to Goldie the ballet dancer, even though Goldie the ballet dancer was struggling. So finding who I was outside of ballet was painful and it was hard. And at the same time, I'm so grateful for it, because now I get to see Goldie who dances and Goldie who teaches and Goldie who's a friend. And that's one major thing that I wish I could have had while I was in my career. But when you're in it, it's like ballet's the only thing that matters. It's the only thing I want to talk about. It's the only thing on my mind. So taking a step back, it just puts a lot of things into perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And, my whole reason for even holding these conversations is that's one of the biggest ones, honestly, is to just like prove to the dancers who are very much in it that it's okay to be motivated, to be driven, to be highly focused. Because, like you said, you are an elite level athlete, right? We do need a major element of that. With that being said, there is no reason that we can't have another hobby, another hat that we wear. So I love that. Talk to me about the Lazy Ballerina Club. I'm curious about the name, how you got there, and really just what it means for you and the impact that you're striving for.
Yes. So the name is kind of just like a play on irony and sarcasm and how I have always felt in my ballet career. I have always felt if you're not doing the extra thing or going to the gym at 5 a.m. before your 9-hour rehearsal day, that was considered lazy. And that was considered that you don't want it as much as you should, or just because I went out and had a drink after rehearsal, I wasn't as focused, or whatever the conversation was. So the term lazy, I'm essentially trying to take that power back and, prioritizing my mental wellness and who I am as a human shouldn't be considered lazy. If anything, it should be celebrated that, I would love to be the best dancer I can be, and I also need to make sure that I'm okay and my head is okay and, my mental state is okay. And I think another like common misconception when people view my content is that it's like anti-ballet or I'm over ballet, ballet is lame or whatever. And if anything, it's just to make your ballet better. All of the things that you do to work on yourself and prioritize yourself will only translate into strength and advocating for yourself and validating yourself. So that's like a long way to talk about the Lazy Ballerina Club. But again, when I broke my contract, I was desperate to find someone who did the same thing that I was doing. I was terrified, and I felt this like need to share. I needed to share what I was going through. I needed to share that I gained 25 pounds during COVID. I've never gained 25 pounds in my life, and how terrifying that was. Or I didn't want to do ballet class in my living room, and I just couldn't do it. And just connecting with like-minded dancers and motivating each other and sharing our stories, and kind of just remembering that we're not alone. We're all in it together. And at the end of the day, it's just ballet. And if we can laugh about it, I think it'll be easier to deal with.
Absolutely. So beautifully said, Goldie. And you are really setting a very impactful, I should say you're paving a very impactful path for a lot of dancers. Lots of parallels with what I do from the nutritional side of things here, right? To the point nutrition and the healthy dancer just being born from my own struggles with teetering into perfectionism with food. Like you said, it's very easy for dancers to feel like they are not doing enough if they're not cross training at 5 a.m. every day or eating a perfectly, and I quote, clean diet, which was really how I started with everything. And similar to you, I can't tell you how many messages or even like random comments I'll get if I'm posting something about like dismantling what I call dancer diet culture.
Yeah.
And, you know, similarly, you know, we got to like take a couple steps back. It's okay to enjoy dessert, have it as part of an otherwise balanced meal plan. But I'll get some comments that's like, oh, you're promoting processed foods and this is not healthy and how could you be a sports dietitian, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And it's so I feel that, you know, get those random bits of like hate where it's like, have you actually like followed me and like looked at my content, read my blog? I don't think so. But regardless, just that idea of it is so easy for us to hyper fixate to the degree where it becomes very a hindrance, right, to dancer progress, because that's when we start teetering into the land of burnout, because you can only sustain these obsessive behaviors, particularly when they relate to eating and like moving our body, exercise. You can only sustain them for so long. So I love what you're doing. I think you are setting such an impactful example for dancers, former dancers and future dancers out there, really.
Yeah.
I would love for you to answer. It's a very general question I ask everybody who I interview, and I think you can really provide some nice insight here. But how would you redefine, just in all of your experience now, from your professional days to your teaching days, your also performing days, how would you redefine what it means to be the healthy dancer?
Well, I think, you know, I feel like I'm a broken record, but
that's okay. I'm a broken record all the time, so go for it.
But you know what? I'm going to scream it from the rooftops. As soon as I realized that I was human before I was a dancer, it's like the world opened up.
Yeah.
You know, I think that is the healthiest version of myself. And as a dancer, I am a dancer, and when I'm in that environment, I think that version of me is so powerful and so beautiful and so great and blah blah blah, and it's not the only me. And remembering that, I think, is my version of the healthiest dancer, because at the end of the day, I can have a salad, I can eat my veggies and do all the things and cross train and roll out and all the things on the checklist to be healthy, but if my like mindset and my brain is struggling, then it doesn't even matter, because it affects everything else. My dancing won't be as good, my muscles will hurt because I'm stressed, and so on and so on.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Again, so many parallels, right? Just learning who you are outside of being the dancer, and also remembering for anyone, you know, especially for like my pre-professionals that are so fixated right now on getting those contracts, getting into that summer intensive or that pre-professional program. So much of it is understanding that you are more than a dancer, but you're also a dancer. Same with you, Goldie, right? Because at the start of the conversation, you know, it's like, what question mark? I'm professional, question mark, professional. No, girl, you are a professional dancer. Yeah. Own that. You can have all of these hats. I say this to myself all the time. And it's very empowering to remember that. And most importantly, because I still experience the self-doubt, especially on stage in the wings. I'm like, think of a very specific time this December. And it really helps with the confidence, right? Just remembering the confidence to keep on going and doing this. So
Definitely.
yeah.
And I always have to like go back to, you know, those moments where after my first contract, I was in the second company and I was let go mid-season and just not renewed for next season. And as ballet dancers, once you are not renewed for next season, you still have to show up for the next work in that room and with that director. And my first time, you know, experiencing that, it feels like your world is like ending. You want to die, that's it, throw the pointe shoes out, whatever. But something crazy happens and you start dancing better than you've ever danced before. You start feeling confident. You start going for certain things that you might not necessarily have gone for before because it's not for the director anymore. It's for yourself, you know. And I actually took ballet class this morning and there were a few girls auditioning and I just want to scream, like, if you are auditioning right now, try to do it for yourself. It just will change everything in the room, even though it's so much easier said than done, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. You've shared such beautiful insights, truly, Goldie. I'm so happy to have spoken to you today, and really happy for anyone who follows me here to just follow you too, because you've like I said, I think I found you maybe during COVID, and it was like a little bit of, it was a major breath air for myself as well. Yeah, so thank you so much, Goldie. We will still connect, and I'll talk to you soon.
Yes.